This is the science of stupid. Warning, the stunts in this show were performed by the scientifically unsound. They've endured pain. Do not follow in their footsteps. This is the show that combines stupidity and science in a mix so volatile, it'll take your breath away. Over the next half hour, we'll see acts of harebrained hilarity and then explain the science behind what went wrong. Consider this a guide to what you should never do. If you ignore the laws of science, they'll pay you back with painful dividends. So observe our intrepid investigators from all around the world and learn why physics can be fly by the seat of your pants stuff. Never try anything you see in this show at home or anywhere. Yes, science will slap you wherever you are. Welcome to the science of stupid. On this show, we'll see the effects of expanding gases and the effects of kinetic energy. But first, this. Scientists and engineers have spent decades developing accessible safety technology for the masses. But there's always a joker who comes along and puts all that hard work to a different use. If you don't believe me, check out what these pranksters did with the humble airbag. At Christmas.
May your holidays be filled with surprises and joy.
Oh my God!
At a birthday party. And even a wedding.
Are you f***ing kidding me? Change the goddamn it!
At least you saw the funny side. Despite what you've seen, the airbag is an extremely complex piece of engineering. When compared to cars with just seatbelts, they've reduced deaths in head-on crashes by 30% since their introduction. Here's how. Most people know airbags inflate quickly, as fast as 30 milliseconds. But the really clever part of the airbag is that it's fully inflated before the passenger hits it, and then slowly deflates, absorbing force. Were it not to do this, it would cause serious injury. Inflating at up to 250 miles an hour, it packs the same punch as a professional boxer. So, here's a demonstration of that explosive force. As two airbags are put inside a dryer, why they've been put there, I don't know.
Ready to blow.
Over 20 gallons of gas in an enclosed space. Well, I guess if you live in the country, you need to make your own entertainment.
Wow.
But remember, that explosive power is not what saves you. It's the cushioning effect of the deflation. An inflating airbag and a person don't mix. If you don't believe me, check this out. Our next demonstration suggests that the weight of an armchair and a fully grown man is no match for an airbag.
Yep.
And what about a 400-pound mower? It's not God, it's physics. An inflation force of 750 pounds to be precise. And don't forget, it's the deflation 50 milliseconds after impact that saves you. It's definitely not the initial expansion, as these backroom scientists will testify. Remember, the airbag should be deflating when you make contact. Otherwise, the only thing being absorbed is the sand up your beach bum.
You okay? We're not doing that again.
A good decision, I think. And check out this pair of budget thrill seekers. They're looking into the Big Bang Theory. Sitting an inch or two away from the inflation before it deflates means you'll feel all that explosive force right up inside you.
That like ruptured my stomach.
Despite first appearances, the humble seesaw is actually one of the most dangerous of playground activities. Especially when you don't utilize it correctly. Ouch! If you want to avoid a trip to the hospital, you might want to differentiate your pivots from pain. Here's the science. When stripped down to the basics, a seesaw is a lever balanced on a central pivot. When two people of the same weight are sitting equal distance from the pivot, they'll be evenly balanced and they'll experience an equilibrium position. A small input of force from the legs moves you up and down. An increase in weight on one side will disturb that equilibrium. Counteract this problem by moving the heavier weight closer to the pivot, as this has the effect of decreasing the leverage applied to the lighter side. Get it right, you can do this. Both girls are of the same weight and equal distance from the pivot. It's poetry in motion. Up, down. Up, down. Up. Mesmerizing, isn't it? But it doesn't take a lot to upset that equilibrium.
Ready?
Oh dear. Let's just see that again, but with arrows. One of the riders is heavier than the other. Sorry, but that's you on the left. It just is. If she'd sat nearer the pivot, the seesaw would have regained equilibrium, and she wouldn't have had to rely on such a big push-off. A push-off that proved to be her undoing. If you add height to that extra weight, the equilibrium can be thrown sky high. No prizes for spotting that this isn't a seesaw. That said, this airbed can be used to similar effect. A greater mass landing on one side results in higher velocity on the other. Lucky the window was closed. Can you guess what scientific principle this human cannonball is about to experience? Who guessed the fate of this flying physicist? The scientific principle behind this clanger is momentum. Momentum is mass times velocity, and at 50 miles an hour, our cannon fodder has a lot. The net's job is to slowly reduce that momentum and lower the impact of force. Unfortunately, the poles holding the net haven't been tethered well enough for such a force. No broken bones, but the same can't be said for his pride. My favourite time of year is winter. The first snow has fallen and in a scene played out across the land, children wrapped up in hats and scarves rush to their nearest hill, dragging sledges. But it's not too long until the virgin white snow is stained with blood and tears. I'm afraid those smashes were pretty much inevitable. You see, the problem with most sledges is that they're bad at stopping. The reason for that lies in the science. Like ice, snow is covered with a very thin layer of water that provides a fluid barrier between the sledge and the surface of the snow. And it can be as thin as 8/millionths of an inch. This film acts like a lubricant, minimizing friction, allowing the sledge to slide. Newton's first law of motion means you'll keep going until something stops you. Have you got that? You need a thin layer of water to minimize friction. So it's best to wait until winter. Once the snow comes, there's a lack of friction. So the steeper the hill, the greater the force of gravity and the faster you'll go. So even the smallest bump will send you flying. It is amazing what 8/millionths of an inch of water can do. The fastest speed ever recorded on a gravity-driven sledge was 62 miles per hour. So it is pertinent to remember Sir Isaac Newton's first law of motion. You'll always keep going until something stops you. So you might need a helping hand or a helping paw.
Here they come down the hill. It looks like Ruben is in the lead, and here comes Alex.
Typical news reporter, giving every story plenty of spin.
That was a bad idea.
Parkour is that crazy sport invented by the French, where they jump with cat-like agility through an urban environment. There are loads of different moves to master amidst the concrete jungle. But some are harder than others. So maybe we should start with the basics. One of the nuts and bolts tricks is the gainer. A backward somersault while still moving forward. When done correctly, it can be pretty impressive. When done badly, it's very painful.
Right on the nose.
To help him and other parkour enthusiasts, here's some science. The key is to turn that horizontal speed into rotation. Our expert does this by swinging his arms and kicking up. He then spins by tucking in his legs. The law of angular momentum will dictate how quickly he spins. If he halves his length, he'll quadruple his spin speed. Got that? Anyone can have the occasional slip-up. Go on, have another go. That's more like park floor. When the insanely brave get bored, they mix things up a bit, taking a standard gainer and throwing in an object to vault over. It's known as a Kong gainer. It's also one of the hardest moves in parkour to master. Here's why. It involves the practitioner approaching the wall with plenty of speed. Instead of using their legs for leverage, they use their arms, pushing themselves into a full rotation. But just like the gainer, the same rules of science and common sense still apply. Like actually beginning the rotation. Ow! Pay attention. When length doubles, spin speed is quartered, whilst neck length can also be reduced. And make sure you get enough height, because you don't want your spin unspun by your face.
I was just trying to Kong gainer. Right there. Ooh, yeah.
Men, let's be honest. Building a house is a pipe dream for most of us. But when it comes to knocking something down, there's no need to call the professionals. How hard can it possibly be?
One more here, see what happens. Oh, no.
Perhaps it is best to call the professionals.
Fail.
Most of us won't ever actually need to take down a 60-foot tall tower, but we might have a wall or a shed that needs demolishing. First up, here's some basic common sense rules. Make sure you wear protective gear. Familiarize yourself with the tools.
Other way.
And always clear your surroundings.
Oh my God, it was so stupid. Somebody needs to call the police.
So stop filming it and phone them.
This is bad. That could have killed someone.
In 2012, there were 775 deaths in the US construction industry. So if you want to avoid becoming just another statistic, watch this. Buildings are designed to withstand severe loads with a very low chance of collapsing. But even when unloaded, removing load-bearing walls is a dangerous road to catastrophe. Remove too much, and you'll literally bring the house down. So instead, start from the top and work down to prevent accidental collapse of the whole structure. Put even more simply, take the roof off first. These guys look like they know what they're doing. The shirts say it all. Oh, you're supposed to take the roof off.
That's the way to do it.
No, it's not. Mark, I'm gonna kick your ass.
One raw bottom later.
Beautiful. Now that's the way you do it. Yeah, it moved.
You have to take the roof off. Just ask Jacob Weir.
That's something in.
Where do you think Jacob's gone wrong here? Let's rewind. By removing all this, the roof is now dangerously unsupported, which means one little prod, and Jacob nearly lost his leg. Don't worry, he's okay now. Now, I do love a beach holiday. That feeling of soft sand between your toes, the sound of the ocean, the water lapping away at your ankles, and then sometimes Mother Nature can be mischievous. So, if you want to avoid a soaking, here's some swell science to help you deal with life at sea. At sea, a wave is not the result of water moving to shore, but actually created by the wind moving across it. It's this that we see as ripples on the surface moving across the sea. It's a bit like how a Mexican wave works. It's not the people that are moving around the stadium. It's their combined staggered movement that gives the impression of the wave. The key to not being engulfed by that approaching wave is to reduce the surface area in contact with the wave. And it means that in the harshest of sea conditions, you can do this. By reducing surface area in contact with the waves, this boat remains afloat in massive seas. Of course, most of us will rarely find ourselves at sea in a storm, but even the waves on a beach can pack a punch. Waves break when they reach a shallow shore, like this rocky one. The top of the wave overtakes the bottom, creating a huge breaker. With 1 cubic yard of water weighing over a ton, it really pays to avoid Neptune's wrath. These boys think they're safe with no rock for the waves to break on. But that wall's a pretty good substitute. You can run from science, but you can't hide. One of the biggest waves ever recorded was 32 meters tall during Typhoon Crosa. That's as tall as a 10-story building. So it's obvious the bigger the wave, the more energy is carried. Double the height, it's quadruple the energy. And that is why it's so important to respect the science of waves. Ignore it at your peril. Especially close to shore, where the waves are breaking. These young hipsters look like they're having fun in their powerboat. All they've got to do when meeting those pesky waves is hit them at the right angle. I guess that wasn't the right angle. At least the captain went down with his ship. Literally. Fancy another day out tomorrow, girls? That's enough trials and tribulation in the traumatic world of physics. Science can really ruin your day, so please don't try any of this at home. But if you do, I don't know, make sure you've got good health insurance. No, just don't do it. There's always somebody else who will, trust me.
Right there.